The audience laughed when Gavin Holt said it. Then they realized he wasn't joking. Prince Adrian Bellmere had been explaining, for nearly 2 minutes, why the constant criticism surrounding his new life was proof that powerful institutions still wanted to control him. Gavin sat across the desk, listening. No interruption. No exaggerated reaction. No joke. Adrian finished by saying something he had repeated in interviews for years. People become uncomfortable when you stop playing the role they created for you. Gavin nodded. Maybe, Adrian smiled. Then Gavin added, but if every room you leave is toxic, eventually people are going to wonder what you keep bringing into the room. The laughter started instantly. Sharp, loud, almost reflexive. Then it faded. Because Gavin Holt wasn't smiling, Prince Adrian wasn't either. The studio became completely silent. Adrian blinked once. You think I'm the problem? Gavin leaned back. I think that's a much easier question than the one I asked. The audience reacted again. Adrian's jaw tightened. Gavin continued. I'm asking whether you allow the possibility. Silence. What possibility? That sometimes you are. Adrian stared at him. And in that moment, a 23-minute interview stopped being a book promotion. By morning, that 12-second exchange would be everywhere. But the line only worked because of what happened before it. Because Gavin had not spent the interview insulting Prince Adrian. He had spent it listening. Then asking for specifics. And every time the question became more specific, Adrian's answer somehow became less so. The Nightwire had seen plenty of celebrity chaos during its 13-year run. Politicians shouting. Actors walking off. Executives discovering too late that Gavin's research team had read their lawsuits. But Prince Adrian arrived expecting something lighter. He was promoting a new documentary called Unbound. The film followed his life after leaving official royal duties. New home, new company, new charitable work, new family routines, and, according to Adrian, a new understanding of freedom. He walked onto the stage smiling. Dark suit, open collar, no tie. The audience applauded. Gavin stood. They shook hands. Your Royal Highness. Adrian laughed. Adrian is fine. Gavin nodded. Excellent, I didn't iron anything formal. The audience laughed. Adrian relaxed. That mattered. Because Gavin Holt had a particular way of conducting interviews. The first few questions rarely looked dangerous. He made guests comfortable. He made them laugh. Then he placed 2 statements next to each other and waited to see whether the guest noticed they didn't fit. This story is fiction, but you already know someone exactly like him. Before we get to the response that changed the whole interview, subscribe if you enjoy dramatized stories where public image meets specific questions. Because Gavin started with the easiest subject of all. Freedom. You describe leaving royal life as the first independent decision of your adult life. Adrian nodded. That's fair. That must have been terrifying. It was. No institution behind you, no guaranteed role, no established machine. Adrian smiled. Exactly, Gavin nodded. Then why did you keep the title? The audience laughed. Adrian smiled. I knew that was coming. Good, it's part of who I am. Okay, my title connects me to my family and history. Leaving official duties didn't erase either. That makes sense. Adrian looked slightly surprised. Gavin continued. You also use it professionally, a pause. In some contexts. Your production company biography says Prince Adrian. Yes, the documentary poster says Prince Adrian. Yes, the book says Prince Adrian. Yes. Gavin nodded. So you left the institution but kept the part of the institution that helps people identify the product. Adrian's smile tightened. That's a very cynical way of describing identity. I didn't describe your identity. Gavin leaned forward. I described the marketing. A few people in the audience laughed. Adrian shook his head. It isn't marketing. Would the documentary have the same value to a streaming company if the poster said Adrian Bellmere? Adrian paused. That's impossible to answer. Why? Because I am Prince Adrian. Right, Gavin nodded. That's why the title has commercial value. Adrian looked toward the audience. I think we're confusing heritage with commerce. Maybe. Gavin placed one sheet of paper beside him, but your company trademarked your royal crest. Adrian looked back quickly. For licensing protection. So it has no commercial value? I didn't say that. Okay. Gavin nodded. Then we agree. Adrian frowned. On what? That it has commercial value. Silence. Gavin moved on. The next subject was privacy. That was where the interview began to tighten. Adrian had spent years arguing that one of the reasons he left royal duties was relentless intrusion into his family's personal life. Gavin began carefully. You wanted privacy. I wanted boundaries. Better word. Adrian nodded. There's a big difference. Between privacy and boundaries? Yes, explain it. Privacy sounds like hiding. Adrian leaned forward. Boundaries mean you decide which parts of your life people are entitled to access. Gavin nodded. I like that. Exactly, so you decide what stays private. Yes, and other people decide what stays private about them. Adrian paused. Obviously, Gavin looked at him. Your memoir includes private conversations with your brother. Adrian's expression changed. From my perspective. Were they private? Yes, did he consent? No, your father? Adrian's jaw tightened. No, former advisors? No, Gavin nodded. So their boundary didn't apply? That's not what happened. What happened? I was telling my story. They were in it. Because they were part of my experience. Gavin stared at him. Okay, Adrian waited. Gavin continued. If your brother writes a memoir tomorrow and publishes private conversations with you, is that his story? Adrian hesitated. It depends. The audience reacted softly. Gavin tilted his head. On? Intent. How do you know his intent? Context. Gavin nodded. What context makes his private story different from yours? Adrian leaned back. If it's done to retaliate, that's very different from sharing experiences in order to explain what happened. Who decides whether it's retaliation? I think people can tell. Can they? Yes, Gavin paused. You published private family material after a public dispute. Adrian's expression hardened. That's an incredibly reductive description. It is. Gavin nodded. That's why I'm asking what makes your version different. Adrian crossed his arms. Purpose, you already said that. Because it's the answer. What was your purpose? To tell the truth. Gavin nodded. And if your brother says exactly that? Silence. Adrian looked toward the desk. Then, back. You're creating a false equivalence. Gavin smiled faintly. That phrase has never made anything clearer. The audience laughed. Adrian did not. Gavin closed the page. Let's talk about the foundation. Adrian appeared relieved. For about 10 seconds, the Bellmere Veterans Alliance was one of Adrian's most important public projects. He spoke passionately about trauma, mental health, suicide prevention, the obligation to support former service members after the headlines disappeared. Gavin listened seriously, no jokes. Then asked, how many full-time treatment centers does the Alliance operate? Adrian paused. We work through an integrated network. How many? There are different levels of participation. Gavin waited. Adrian sighed. 3 primary locations. Great. Gavin nodded. How many are currently accepting new patients? Adrian looked at him. I'm not sure. 1. Adrian's expression tightened. The other locations are undergoing restructuring. So 1. Fully operational, yes, Gavin nodded. Why didn't you say 1? Adrian exhaled. Because saying 1 makes the work sound much smaller than it is. But 1 is the number. The work isn't a number. You described the project as measurable impact in your documentary. Adrian paused. Impact is measurable in different ways. Okay, Gavin looked down. How? Community engagement. How many veterans received direct treatment last year? I don't have that number. How many participated in online resources? I don't have that number either. Gavin looked up. Then what measurement were you referring to? Adrian's voice cooled. I don't carry every statistic in my head. Fair. Gavin closed the page. Your annual report says 418 veterans received direct program support. Adrian stared. Gavin continued. That could be excellent work. It is. I'm not criticizing the number. It sounds like you are. No, Gavin shook his head. I'm criticizing the instinct to hide a respectable number behind larger language. The audience murmured. Adrian leaned forward. Because people like you reduce serious humanitarian work to gotcha questions. Gavin stared at him. People like me? Media figures looking for contradictions instead of understanding. Gavin nodded slowly. Okay, he took a sip of water. Then help me understand. Adrian said nothing. You say measurable impact. Yes. I ask for the measurement. Adrian's jaw tightened. You say I'm reducing the work. Silence. What question should I have asked? Adrian paused. What the work means. Okay. Gavin nodded. What does it mean? Adrian relaxed slightly. It means veterans knowing they're not forgotten. Good answer. Adrian nodded. Gavin added, how do you know whether they know that? Adrian stared. The audience laughed. Gavin did not. Eventually, we need a measurement. Adrian leaned back. The fourth subject came from the documentary itself. Climate responsibility. Adrian was shown speaking at an environmental summit, telling viewers that climate change required sacrifice from everyone. Gavin played a short clip, then looked at Adrian. You flew privately to that summit. Adrian nodded. Security. Okay, sometimes commercial travel isn't feasible. I believe you. Adrian looked surprised. Gavin continued. How many private flights did you take last year? Adrian's expression tightened. I don't know. 14? I don't count them. Your security report does. Adrian stared. Gavin lifted one hand. Again, maybe all 14 were necessary. Many were. Good, Gavin nodded. Then what sacrifice did you make? Adrian frowned. Excuse me? You told people fighting climate change requires sacrifice. Yes, what did you sacrifice? I support carbon offset programs. That's payment. It offsets emissions. That may be useful. Gavin leaned forward. But I asked what you stopped doing. Adrian looked irritated. It's not about symbolic personal purity. Agreed. It requires systemic change. Agreed, so focusing on individual flights is a distraction. Gavin nodded. Then why tell individuals they need to change? Adrian paused. Because everybody has responsibility. Exactly, Gavin smiled. That's why I asked about yours. Silence. Adrian looked toward the audience. Nobody laughed. He looked back. I think this is becoming deliberately adversarial. Not yet. Gavin's tone was calm. That comes later. A few uncomfortable laughs. Then came staff. This was the fifth piece. Adrian's production and charitable organization, North Star House, had been praised publicly for its modern leadership culture. Adrian called it collaborative, non-hierarchical. Human, Gavin looked at another page. You've had 4 communications directors in 3 years. Adrian's face changed. Organizations evolve. 3 chiefs of staff. Roles evolve. 2 operations directors. People leave companies. They do. Gavin nodded. Why did yours? I'm not discussing private employment matters. Fair. Gavin put the page down. What did you change? Adrian blinked. About what? Your leadership. Adrian stared. If that many senior people leave, you presumably examine whether something needs changing. We constantly examine ourselves. What did you change? Adrian paused. Our communication structures. How? We improved internal alignment. Gavin repeated it. Internal alignment. Yes, what does that mean? Adrian's expression tightened. It means teams communicating more effectively across different operational priorities. Gavin stared at him. The audience waited. Finally, Gavin said, that sentence should be arrested. The audience erupted. Adrian looked furious. Gavin raised one hand. Sorry, he was smiling now. That was unfair. Adrian said nothing. Gavin became serious. Try again. Adrian exhaled. We created clearer reporting lines. Good, Gavin nodded. That's an answer. Adrian seemed caught off guard. Gavin continued. Did it reduce turnover? We believe it helped. Good. Gavin closed the folder. No celebration. No attack. Adrian watched him. What? Gavin asked. You look disappointed. I'm not. You expected something. I expected you to keep avoiding specifics. Adrian's face hardened again. And now? You answered one. Gavin shrugged. Turns out it was survivable. The audience laughed. Adrian looked away. Then the interview reached the point that would produce the viral clip. Gavin placed the folder aside. No more paperwork. Adrian looked back. No numbers. Silence. No brother. Another pause. No flights. Gavin folded his hands. One thing I'm genuinely curious about. Adrian waited. Gavin asked, who in your life is allowed to tell you that you're wrong? Adrian blinked. What kind of question is that? A simple one. I have plenty of people. Name the role, not the person. Adrian hesitated. My wife. Good, my friends. Good advisors. Gavin nodded. And when they tell you you're wrong, I listen. You change your mind? When appropriate. Gavin paused. Can you give me one example? Adrian stared at him. The room became quiet. Gavin waited. Adrian's eyes shifted slightly. I've changed my mind about many things. 1. A pause. I don't think I need to perform self-criticism for you. You don't. Gavin nodded. But you've spent this interview explaining why everybody else's criticism misses context. Adrian's jaw tightened. The press misunderstands. Silence. The palace misunderstands. Adrian shifted. Former employees require confidentiality. Another pause. Critics reduce complexity. Adrian stared. People questioning the foundation are reducing humanitarian work. Gavin's voice remained even. People questioning the flights are distracting from systemic change. Adrian leaned forward. What exactly is your point? Gavin waited. Then said, if every room you leave is toxic, eventually people are going to wonder what you keep bringing into the room. The audience exploded. For 3 seconds, Gavin let them. Then his expression remained completely serious. The laughter faded. Adrian stared. You think I'm the problem? Gavin shook his head. I think that's an easier question than the one I asked. What question? Whether you allow the possibility. Silence. What possibility? That sometimes you are. Adrian's face flushed. This is exactly the kind of cheap, personal attack I expected from you. Gavin's eyebrows rose. Personal attack? Yes, I asked whether you can be wrong. You implied every problem in my life is my fault. No. Gavin shook his head. That would be absurd. Then what are you saying? That if enough relationships fail, enough employees leave, enough institutions become enemies, enough journalists become malicious, and enough critics become morally defective? Gavin paused. Eventually, curiosity requires one question. Adrian stared. What is my contribution? Silence. Gavin nodded. Yes, 7 seconds. Nobody moved. Then Adrian said, this conversation is hostile. Gavin leaned back. No, he gestured toward the folder. The first 20 minutes were specific. Another pause. This part is just uncomfortable. The audience reacted. Adrian shook his head. You sit behind a desk and turn complex trauma into jokes. Gavin said nothing. You have absolutely no idea what my family endured. You're right. Adrian stopped. Gavin continued. I don't. You don't know what it was like. No, you don't know what the institution did. No. Adrian looked almost confused by the agreement. Then Gavin said, and none of that answers the question. Silence, that's the problem. Adrian stood. The audience gasped. Gavin remained seated. I think we're finished. Gavin nodded. If you want to be. Adrian removed the microphone from his lapel. This wasn't an interview. What was it? A setup. Gavin looked at him. What answer was I setting you up to give? Adrian paused. Gavin continued. I didn't ask you to admit guilt. No response. I didn't ask you to apologize to your family. Adrian looked toward the exit. I asked whether you contribute to your own conflicts. Silence, you could have said yes. Gavin shrugged. Everybody does. That stopped Adrian for half a second, but only half. He placed the microphone on the desk. You should think about whether humiliating people is really journalism. Gavin nodded. Fair, Adrian waited. Then Gavin gave the line that would eventually rival the first clip. But if being asked whether you can be wrong feels humiliating, he paused. The question probably isn't the problem. The audience went dead silent. Adrian turned, walked off stage. Nobody stopped him. Nobody booed. A few people started applauding. Gavin raised his hand. Don't. The applause died instantly. He's allowed to leave. Gavin looked toward the empty chair. That doesn't make him guilty of anything. Political analyst Clara Dane joined Gavin after the commercial break. She sat in Adrian's chair. That was uncomfortable. Yes, do you think you went too far? Gavin considered it. Maybe with the toxic room line. Why? Because it's memorable. Clara frowned. That's bad? Sometimes. Gavin looked toward the camera. Memorable lines make people think they understood the argument before they actually examine it. So what was the argument? Gavin tapped the folder. Not that Adrian caused every problem. Then what? That his explanations always move responsibility outward. Clara nodded. The title is Heritage. The memoir is his experience. The charity language is complexity. The flights are systemic. The turnover is normal. Gavin leaned back. Any one of those explanations could be completely legitimate. But altogether, they create a question. Clara nodded. Where does Adrian appear in his own explanation? Exactly, by the next morning, millions of people in this fictional world had shared the first clip. If every room you leave is toxic, then the second. If being asked whether you can be wrong feels humiliating, the question probably isn't the problem. North Star House released a statement calling the interview a deliberately confrontational exercise designed to generate viral clips rather than meaningful conversation. Gavin addressed it the next evening. Briefly, no replay, no celebration. He read the line, then placed the statement down. They say we wanted viral clips. He looked into the camera. I wanted an example. The audience laughed. Gavin remained serious. One example of criticism Prince Adrian accepted. He paused. That was it. Another pause. He didn't owe me one. Gavin shrugged. But if you build a public identity around accountability, honesty, and challenging powerful institutions, people are eventually going to ask whether those principles work in reverse. He looked directly into the lens. Accountability that only travels outward is accusation. Silence, accountability that travels inward too, Gavin nodded. That's a principle. And that was why the response spread. Not because a fictional comedian humiliated a fictional prince, not because somebody walked off television, but because millions of people recognized the question underneath the confrontation. How do you know whether you want accountability or simply agreement? Prince Adrian had spent years demanding that institutions examine themselves, that families examine themselves, that journalists examine themselves, that critics examine themselves. Gavin Holt asked whether Adrian was willing to join them, and for one uncomfortable moment under the studio lights, there was no polished answer waiting. Only silence. If you want more dramatized stories where carefully managed narratives collide with uncomfortable specificity, subscribe, drop a like. Share this with someone who understands that criticism is not automatically cruelty, and disagreement is not automatically hostility. More precision. More accountability. More moments when one simple question reveals what an entire publicity campaign could not. Stay with us.